The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
West Virginia is also tuning in this afternoon. We have got a great show planned for you. Only problem is I have to do this show today by telephone. You know, when you do a live show, these are the kind of things that come up. We'll have it worked out, though, for next week. I got to introduce you to, I think, one of the greatest personal injury attorneys that in the state of Texas and in West Virginia. Let me introduce you to our longtime guest, our personal injury attorney, Mark Underwood. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Steve. We're on the 11th day of Christmas.
Hey, it's right around the corner, isn't it?
Yep, 11 more days. So I guess yesterday was the 12 days of Christmas. So today we'll have the 11 days of Christmas.
Hey, what happens, Mark, as we get closer to Christmas and then we have New Year's and New Year's Eve? Do you see that are there more auto accidents during the holidays?
You asked a great question. So here's how my business goes. So the end of the year, all the insurance companies want to try to get things settled in the personal injury cases. So there's always a rush to settle cases towards the end of the year so insurance companies can close out their books on some of them. Of course, when it comes to criminal law, you see an uptick in criminal law because everybody's drinking and driving. And then, of course, right after the first of the year, you see an uptick in divorces because everybody makes up their mind over the Christmas holidays to set a New Year's resolution, to have a New Year's resolution to start fresh. So they go out and divorce each other. So that's over the course of 30 years, that's what we've seen. Personal injury cases go up, criminal law cases go up, and people want to file family law cases and divorce cases. But typically, they don't really have enough money right at the first or the second. So it takes almost another month, February, before the family law cases take place because they spend all their money on Christmas gifts for people.
Right. Well,
happens every year.
Hey, we got a lot of letters between the last show and now. And I guess because it's coming up to January, February, and that's icy roads. And it was Tom in Plano wanted to know that when there's icy roads, do you see there's a lot more serious injuries than on dry roads?
Well, definitely in Texas you do, because Texas drivers typically aren't used to icy roads. And of course, in Texas, we have a lot of overpasses, right? Dallas-Fort Worth, you've got
that's right.
Every highway going in every direction. You might be driving along, everything's just A-okay while you're driving up the road. All of a sudden, you hit an overpass, and since the wind is blowing underneath the overpass, it freezes a lot faster, and cars spin out of control, and you see all kinds of crashes. You know, a few years ago, there was a huge 100-car pileup over in Fort Worth, and we did a blog post about that. And that blog post was one of our #1 blog posts for the longest period of time because people always wanted to know how those types of crashes are resolved.
I got to tell you, Mark, Central Expressway, I don't know if it's even still called Central or if it's 75, but I'll never forget, right over Meadow Road, it was so icy and there was an overpass, and my dad said, don't go out in this weather. But of course I knew better. And I went out in the weather at night and went on that overpass. I bet you it wasn't going more than 5, 10, not even 10 miles an hour. And my car started spinning and I got hit by a huge truck. So listen, the icy weather in Dallas, it does get bad.
Of course, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when all the cars were rear wheel drive, you could spin out going 5 miles an hour downhill. You could spin out, right. You get stuck going 5 miles an hour downhill. I used to joke around. First car I had out of law school was rear wheel drive, and I could get stuck in a parking lot going downhill in that car because rear wheel drives just don't work in ice and snow. So I feel your pain, brother. I know what it was like to get into those kinds of crashes.
And it seems like, and I don't know if they still do it now, but it seemed like 20, 25 years ago, a lot of the driveways were on a hill. I mean, they had a slant to them. So when it got icy outside, sometimes you find your car that you parked on the driveway in the middle of the street.
Isn't that the truth?
Right down.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah. Why is it that every house back then had a driveway that was uphill? I mean, it's like they purposely did it that way, and that was the key to the American success story. You had to have a house with a driveway that had a little slant to it. Of course, you'd start down that little slant, you hit your brakes, and just keep right on going, right down to the middle of the street. Hopefully there's nobody coming in either direction. You're safe. So I remember one time actually. I remember one time actually. My wife was pregnant, and we came down a very small hill, and hit my brakes at the end, and kept right on going, right out into the middle of the road. Fortunately, there was nobody coming; everybody was safe. But you want to talk about having a pregnant woman mad at you? Try that sometime.
Yeah. Now, what happens if your car slides down and hits another car?
Well, I have seen. Your fault? Yeah, I've seen defense lawyers say that it was an act of God. I've seen defense lawyers. I've seen defense lawyers say it was an unavoidable accident, and they'll actually argue in front of a jury those two things, and they can get a jury instruction that talks about, there's no liability for an act of God or an unavoidable accident. Of course, the argument always is, from our perspective, for the people, is, well, the individual should have been aware of the conditions then and there existing. They should have been driving at an appropriate speed for the conditions then and there existing. If they had, they would not have crashed, and hundreds of other cars before and after managed to make it through that intersection or down that street without crashing. So there's still negligence.
We're hitting West Virginia today, and what are traffic laws? How much different are they in West Virginia versus Texas?
Well, in Texas, you have to yield for Longhorns, and in West Virginia, you have to yield for coal trucks.
Oh, gosh. Very good.
And you actually have to, in Texas, you actually have to come to a full stop if there's someone riding on the back of the Longhorn.
I don't want to brag or anything, but who's one of the 4 teams in the playoffs?
That would be Hook'em Horns. So one of the greatest universities in the United States, for sure.
That's my school. So I just got to get away from this. So are you saying in West Virginia the laws are not that much different than they are in Texas?
Very, very similar.
Good. Okay. Well, I do know that we're talking about ice on the road, and do they still use the same expression about the black? When the streets are black, that's where there's the most ice at?
Well, I mean, I'm not familiar with that particular expression, but clearly black ice is a danger. But if it's that dangerous, you shouldn't be out driving on it, or you should be using extreme caution, or do what they do in Colorado or Vermont. Get chains on your tires. I have chains in the back. I have chains in the back of my car. If I need them, I pull them out and put them on.
Mark, you're right. There are a lot of overhead passes in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And that's usually where the ice is really bad. If there is a pileup, this is actually part of the other person's question. They want to know if there is a pileup on icy roads, how do they determine whose fault it is?
Who is at fault in a 100-car pileup? And I think a couple of years ago we probably did a podcast on this, a radio show a couple of years ago on this. But and I don't remember the details of that Fort Worth pileup, which is about 100 cars. But basically, when you have a pileup like that, there's never enough insurance to take care of all the injuries and damages that occur. So what ends up happening is everybody pretty much sues everybody in an effort to trigger as much potential insurance as possible. You're gonna sue the first car to crash. You're gonna sue perhaps the city over the design of the roadway. That in Texas, that liability is going to be capped at $250,000 there. You're going to sue everybody that should have been able to see the crash up ahead of them and stop with plenty of time to avoid running into the rear of people. So basically the answer to your question is everybody's going to get sued. And of course, the companies, the semi-tractor trailers and the companies with the deepest pockets are going to have the most exposure, simply because it's unlikely they're going to file for bankruptcy versus an individual. You and I, if we're responsible for that car crash and we got 100 people suing us, we're probably going to walk over to the courthouse and file for bankruptcy to prevent that many people from coming after us. Because even as much insurance as I carry, I carry more than $1 million worth of insurance as I'm driving. That won't pay for a 100-car pileup.
Mark, another question that we had asked, I'm looking on my list where it was, but they basically want to know what is the best auto insurance. They're not asking company. They're asking what should they make sure they're covered.
Well, it depends on your financial position in life. The more insurance, the better.
Right.
What I carry is comprehensive insurance, which provides for auto repairs. Even if I'm in a car wreck by myself, if I'm driving down the road and hit a curb and destroy my tire and my fender, comprehensive is going to kick in to pay for that. Of course, I'm also going to cover liability. I'm also going to have liability coverage because the state is going to require you to have liability coverage to the minimum amount. But, I'm going to have significantly in excess of the minimum amount. Plus, you're going to have underinsurance and uninsurance. Of course, uninsurance covers you when another driver causes an accident that you're injured in, or somebody in your car, a passenger, is injured in. Underinsurance covers you when there's just not enough insurance on the other side. So that's real helpful. Of course, there's also the ability to buy coverage for MedPay and what's called PIP protection, which is basically a no-fault protection. So, in Texas, where people drive fast and some people drive reckless, and you do have a bunch of overpasses, and you have, if you're not a sophisticated driver, you have some confusing streets and highways that people don't know where they're going and what they're doing. I think it's a good idea to have as much insurance as possible. The question you didn't ask, but you kind of talked about, is which carrier do you think is the best?
Is there one?
I think USAA is the best. I think USAA takes care of their insureds better than anybody else. I think USAA is less likely to put their insureds through a bunch of hassle by refusing to settle when they should. And my experience is USAA is the best. So
that is amazing that you said that. My girlfriend has USAA, and it's more expensive, but she said I would not trade it for anything because the way they handle their customers, I would rather pay a little bit more because they always take care of you, and their customer service cannot be matched.
It is not unusual for USAA to pay their underinsurance policy limits before the liability carrier pays their liability limits. And I had a client a couple summers ago, very seriously injured in a bad car wreck. Insurance, the liability policy was $30,000, but he had $100,000 under insurance. While that liability company was busy fighting with him, his USAA paid their $100,000 in underinsurance long before the liability policy was ever paid. I was just super impressed by that.
Well, hey, Mark, we had someone who wanted to know about medical malpractice. And a lot of attorneys no longer practice medical malpractice. Can you explain to the audience what medical malpractice is?
Yes, and we get a lot of calls for medical malpractice cases, but typically what the person is calling about is not actually medical malpractice. It's just bad bedside manner. The patient is upset because of how they were treated or how something turned out, rather than it actually being medical malpractice. Now, you go to a doctor, they can't guarantee results. What they're supposed to do, though, is perform their services up to the standard of care. So, the first question is, was there negligence? Second question is, was there damages? And you have a lot of times you'll see a medical malpractice case, but there's no additional damages. We got a call this morning, as a matter of fact, where a person was in Colorado snowboarding over Thanksgiving. They fell, they hurt themselves, and they went to the ER. The ER doctor told them they were okay. And it's just a sprain that they would be fine. Well, a month goes by, they're still in a lot of pain. They went back to another doctor down here in Texas. It turned out they had a broken arm, a couple places. Okay. Well, how did you miss that? The ER doctor should have discovered that, right? But, what were the additional damages caused? By failing to diagnose that broken arm, did he lose his arm? Did he have to have surgery on his arm? Is there any additional damages? And, it looks like there may not be additional damages. So there's not really a case there to pursue, most likely. You got to dig into it a little bit more. But, did the medical, number one, was there, actions that fell below the standard of care? Number two, did it cause damages? And, in medical malpractice cases, it has to have caused a lot of damages because of the expense in pursuing the case. So, we've got another case we're just looking at right now where man called ambulance to come get him, to take him to the hospital. He got walked out of his house, got into the ambulance, no problems. During the ambulance ride, he started having trouble breathing, so they decided to intubate him. And when they intubated him, they broke his neck. And
wow,
he was, quadriplegic as a result of them breaking his neck. And a few months later, he died. Well, that's clearly, you shouldn't break someone's neck and cause them to be a paraplegic when you intubate them. But the question is, how much were the damages that were caused? Because, he was already up in age, and, terrible course of events. But, the medical malpractice case, that's a tough case to pursue in a way that'll make the family happy.
So that would not be wrongful death, huh?
No, he didn't die from the broken neck. He died from prior conditions. So
that's so sad.
Yeah.
Another question about slip and falls. A lot of slip and falls. One wanted to know, do you have many cases after New Year's Eve of slip and falls?
Well, no, we don't really see an uptick in slip and fall cases after New Year's Eve, unless it's snowy and icy on New Year's Eve. We definitely will see an uptick in slip and fall cases when it's bad weather. However, in Texas, it's nearly impossible to bring a slip and fall case and succeed just for a weather condition. The Texas courts basically say, if it's raining outside and water gets tracked inside, the business can only do so much. So they really err on the side of protecting the business rather than the member of the public. Now, if they slip and fall on a grape or a peach that hasn't been picked up, or Dawn or Joy dishwashing liquid that's spread all over the floor, a different story. But if it's it's conditioned from a natural weather event, it's a difficult case in Texas.
Mark, how do people in West Virginia reach your office?
Well, they can call 844-UNDERWOOD, just like you can in Texas. Anywhere in the United States, you can call toll-free 844-UNDERWOOD. That's 844-863-3796. So toll-free 844-UNDERWOOD.
And I had somebody from Humble, Texas, which I think is down by Houston. I believe Humble.
I think it is.
Anyway, they were wondering, do you handle cases outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
We do, depending upon what kind of case it is.
Okay.
If they have a case in Humble, Texas, they can call us. If they have a case in Humble, Texas, they can call us at 844-UNDERWOOD.
Very good. Because you could actually, if it's the right case, you could handle anything in the state of Texas, right?
That's right. I'm admitted in Texas, West Virginia, California, Washington, D.C., and we've also handled cases in states that we're not admitted in by what's called pro hoc vice, which is Latin for a limited purpose. So, you can actually get admitted for the limited purpose of a single case in other jurisdictions if you're in good standing with where you're admitted.
Mark, we love having you on. I think it's your personality, the way it comes across on the air, and you've got such a great practice. Again, let's give everybody the number and your website address.
So, hey, the website address is underwoodlawoffice.com. You can probably find me by typing in Mark Underwood or Underwood Law Office or Underwood Law Offices. Anything like that will probably find us. Our phone number, of course, is toll-free 844-UNDERWOOD. That's 844-863-3796.
Mark, we will not see you again till after the first of the year. I hope you and your family have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Mark will be back again with us next month on Ask the Experts. Mark, thanks so much.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate it. You have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year's.
Thank you, bud. It's Attorney Mark Underwood. God, we love that guy. He's also got the best stories. Well, that's it for us today. We're going to have to figure out this our microphone, our speakers, find out which one is not working properly. But we've got this great producer named Juan, so we've always got him to help us. Have a Happy New Year, everybody, and a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and we'll see you next month with more Ask the Experts. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.